number 2. All right, number 2 says 3x squared equals 75. Let's pretend that's an x for a minute. How do I undo that 3? How do I solve for x? Divide by 3. We know this from Algebra 1. To undo multiplication, right, we're following SADMEP. We undo PEMDAS. We start with subtraction and addition, then undo division and multiplication, then undo exponents and parentheses. So we're going to start by undoing multiplication by dividing. And we have x squared equals 25. Okay. How do I undo a squared? Square root, literally what it was designed for, right? So we take the square root to undo a squared because I'm trying to get x by itself. I'm trying to solve for x, not x squared. Okay? What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So if I'm taking the square root over here, I have to take the square root over here. That leaves me with x over here on the left side. I have x by itself, which is what I want. Over here, what is the square root of 25? 5. Now, we have to be careful because what they're saying here is what does x equal that equals 25? And let's think about this for a second. We say 5 because 5 times 5 is 25, right? But so is negative 5 times negative 5, right? So x doesn't only equal positive 5, it also equals negative 5 because negative 5 squared is 25 and so is 5 squared. Right? So we actually have 2 different possible answers for x. It could be negative 5 or it could be positive 5. Both of those squared would give me 25. So how do we write this? We write this as plus or minus. You write it with the plus on top of the minus 5. Don't be scared. It is just a math symbol. We use it for saying plus or minus 5 is a solution here. Either one is a solution here. It's fun to draw a plus sign over a minus sign. You can see it up here in the notes. Okay, because a equals the square root of b and a equals the negative square root of b, you write it as plus or minus the square root of b. Okay, we normally have 2 answers here. I want you to understand where this plus or minus comes from. This column, will we get it marked wrong if we don't write the plus or minus? Yes, because that means you're missing a whole answer. The answer isn't just positive 5, it's also negative 5. Both are true. Okay? Questions? All right, let's come down to number 4. This one has an extra step. How do we start number 4? Add the 15. Why? Because we start by undoing subtraction and addition. We have subtraction. To undo subtraction, we add. So we add 15 to both sides. And we have 2x squared equals 80. Remember, our goal is to get x by itself. So how do I undo the 2? We divide. Whenever we want to undo multiplication, we divide. X squared equals 40. How do we undo a squared? We take the square root. So over here I have x equals, always right away, write your plus or minus. What's the square root of 40? Oh, we can't do that. Hey, guess what we've been doing for 3 days? Breaking this down when we can't do that. So what can we break 40 into that's a perfect square? 4 and 10. What's the square root of 4? 2. That is going to come out right in front of my square root like we've been doing before. So x equals plus or minus the square root of 4 is 2. And can I do anything with this 10? No. So I leave it under the square root. And that is my answer. You may think it looks a little funny because it has that plus or minus. It's just a little bling. It's all good. Okay. Questions? All right. Let's go to the next page. Let's go to number 5. Number 5. Ooh. Sad map. What in the heck do I do here first? Subtract what? Subtract 3. I'm so glad you guys didn't say move the 6x squared. A lot of us, whenever we see subtraction, we just want to undo it. Let's be smart here. That doesn't do anything for us. So we're going to subtract the 3 because it's positive. And we want to get it with the 45. That's our goal. Get it with the 45. So we have negative 6x squared equals negative 48. Then what? Yeah, divide by negative 6. We follow the same steps, solving equations. This should feel easy from Algebra 1 now. So we have x squared equals a negative divided by a negative is a positive 8. Okay, all of that is like Algebra 1, easy peasy, solving an equation. This is the new stuff. This is Algebra 2. To get rid of a squared, we take the square root. It literally crosses out the square. That's why it was designed like that. And we have x equals plus or minus. Good. We can't take the square root of 8. Does 8 have a perfect square in it is our next question. It sure does. 4 and 2, like Juan said. Okay, so when you can't take the square root of it, you say, well, does it have a perfect square in it? It does, 4. So I rewrite it like this. And then we take the square root of 4. X equals plus or minus. The square root of 4 is 2. Once you take the square root of something, it comes in front, and you write what you have left under the square root. I still have a 2 under that square root. And that's it. That's all I can do. I can't take the square root of 2. Questions? All right. Number 7. How do I start number 7? Add 6 on both sides. Undo subtraction and addition always first. We have 2x squared equals 48. I'm going to have you guys finish that one. Okay? And I want you to meet me on 6. Meet me on 6. 6 is one we have to think. Thinking is hard. It's Friday. But we can do it. Let's think. How in the world do I solve 6? Oh, I'm so glad you said distribute. absolutely cannot distribute here. It's illegal. Why? Why is it illegal? Illegal activity. Why? Why can't we distribute the 3? Why can't we distribute the squared? Right, because there's a squared. Remember what I said, whenever there's a little squared up here, don't you dare distribute that. And don't you dare distribute anything into it, because this isn't an x minus 2, my loves. It is a way bigger problem. Okay, so we cannot distribute. That's out of the game. We gotta write it twice. Okay, I would agree with you if we were trying to get it into standard form. But if I write it twice, I'm gonna then have an x squared, then I'm gonna have a bunch of x's, and I'm trying to get x by itself. So that kind of seems like too much. Too many x's. I don't want to deal with all that. I don't know how to get rid of them all. I'm trying to get rid of the x's. Okay. Love the thoughts though. So what else? If we don't distribute and we don't write it twice, what do we do? What are we doing with that 3 out front? What are we doing with that 3 out front? Hold on. Listen to my question. What is that 3 doing out front? Not what do we do to it? What is it doing? It's multiplying. How do we undo multiplying? Oh. Why don't we get rid of this 3? That'll make our lives a lot easier, right? Divide it. Whenever you want to undo something, you do the opposite of it. So let's get rid of it. Let's divide it. It's making our lives complicated. So we have x minus 2 squared equals 18. Okay. I feel better. Because how do I undo a squared? Yeah, right? I'm trying to get x by itself. So now I just got to undo the parentheses and the square. To do that, I take the square root. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So over here now, all I have is x minus 2. And over here, right away, I have a plus or minus the square root of 18. Can I take the square root of 18? Is 18 a perfect square? No, so I can't take the square root of it. Does it have a perfect square in it? It does. What is it? 9. Okay, so I'm going to write 9 times 2. Over here, I'm just going to write this again. I don't know what to do with that yet, so I'm just going to rewrite x minus 2. Whenever you don't know what to do with something, just write it again and come back to it later. Okay, so I have x minus 2 equals plus or minus 9 times 2. And now I know what to do over here, right? I take the square root of 9, which is what? 3. So I have x minus 2 equals plus or minus 3. And I can't do anything with that 2, so I leave it under the parentheses. That is simplified. And this is where a lot of people stop and they circle their answer. Why is that wrong? Yeah, x is not by itself. So how do I move that 2? Add it. Good, it's already being subtracted, so I add it. Now this is where math gets very tricky and very discriminatory. Okay? Gotta remember, math was invented by a bunch of old angry men. So keep that in mind. All right, so when we add the 2, we ain't putting it to the back. It's gonna come right in front here. It thinks it's better than the square root, and it is, according to math. Okay, so whenever you take a number over here and you add it or subtract it, it goes in front. You will never see it behind. Does it look funky? Yes. But, you know, we don't judge. Don't judge. Questions? Okay. I hope I haven't used up all your brain power because let's look at 8. What do we do with 8? Okay. Juan, I think you just misspoke, but I like what you're thinking. How do we get rid of a fraction? We multiply, right? A fraction is just dividing. So to get rid of a fraction, we multiply. By what? Yeah, the denominator or the reciprocal. So 5 over 1 or just 5 is fine. And what we do to one side, we do to the other. Okay, so if you've noticed the trend in both of these problems, when I have a number in front, you want to start by undoing it. Okay, this undoes my 5s. Oops. And I'm left with x minus 4 squared equals 75. Whenever all I have is a squared, I undo it. So I'm going to take the square root. What I do to one side, I got to do to the other. So I have x minus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 75. Is 75 a perfect square? Is 75 a perfect square? No. Does it have a perfect square in it? Yeah, for sure. Okay. Now I want you to think of something. When a number ends in a 5, it normally divides by a 5. Okay. So I'm not going to go through 64 and 49. I'm going to go right to 25. Also, I know because, you know, I deal with money all the time, that 3/4 are 75 cents. Do we know this? Okay. Do we even know what quarters are anymore? Okay, that's good. Okay, so I'm going to break this up into 25 times 3. 25 cents, 3/4 of 75. Okay. 25 is the perfect square, so I take it. I have x minus 4 equals plus or minus. Remember, this stays in front. 5. And I can't do anything with the 3, so I leave it under the square root. And my last step is to do what, my dears? Add the 4. Get it over in front. X equals 4 plus or minus 5√3. Okay? Don't be scared of these problems. It should be pretty simple now that we've really emphasized simplifying and combining with solving. Questions? This is our why. This is why we have been simplifying for days. This is our why. Okay. Let's look at number 9. Let's take a little bit of a breather here. Is there anything to add or divide or multiply by? No. So right away, we just take the square root. X equals plus or minus. Is 169 a perfect square? Yeah, what is it? 13. Look, some of you were so ready to just be like, no. It is. Yay. And this problem makes sense, right? 13 squared is 169, and so is negative 13. All right, what about number 10? Take the square root, right? We do it right away when there's nothing to add or subtract. A equals plus or minus. Can we take the square root of 50? Is that a perfect square? No. Does it have a perfect square in it? Yes, what? Yeah, 25 times 2. What's the square root of 25? 5. So A equals plus or minus 5 root 2. Done. Miss Collins, will it be wrong if I put the 5 in front of the plus or minus? Yes, those are different answers. Okay, one more, and then you guys are going to finish evens. Let's look at number 14. How do we start number 14? Divide the negative 3. Good. W squared equals 72. Okay. What do we do from here? Square root. Is 72 a perfect square? What does it have? Okay. 9 times what? 8. I want you to finish this. All right, and I want you to call Miss Knight and I over. I want you to think about if there's anything else you can break down too. So here's what you need. We're going to be checking that 14 and 12 are right, and then you finish your odds as well. You've still got 15 minutes left to do so. Should be plenty of time. We've done majority of the problems with you. And then you can start your odd puzzle. Okay? Questions? All right, close over when you're ready for a stand. Ready? You do this. W equals plus or minus 3 root 8. That is not done. You always have to ask yourselves, can I break this down further? Why is this not done? No. Because what? 8 has a perfect square in it. What does it have in it? 4. That's my perfect square. What's the square root of 4? 2. That has got to come out and we got to multiply. What's 3 times 2? 6. Can I break down the 2? No. Please ask yourselves, can I break this down further? Okay. All right.